Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're venturing on into 2 Kings. We're going to be finishing up some chapters in 2 Kings 18 and 19, and then we'll be moving over to some supportive, I guess you could say, psalms of the narrative that we read from 2 Kings in Psalm 46, Psalm 80, as well as Psalm 135. So this narrative piece that we've heard in 2 Kings today is actually just more of like a more detailed repeat of what we have already read in Isaiah, correct?
Yeah, in some instances, it's not even more detailed. It's just word for word exactly what's in Isaiah 35 and 36.
Maybe it feels more detailed because
Actually,
I read it this time.
36 and 37. And it's word for word the same. So the reason for that, if you're curious about that, is Isaiah is most likely the original text. Like Isaiah is the book that was written, by Isaiah or by some of Isaiah's scribes or whatever. It is the older text, and then the writer of Kings was kind of similar to the chronicler that we've talked about. The writer of Kings is recording the history of the nations for the people returning from exile. So the book of Kings is written much later than the book of Isaiah, and it's obvious here that the writer of Kings, or the writer of 2 Kings, based his writings on the writings from Isaiah that they already had.
And context here, what we're referring to, the narrative that we're actually even talking about, is when King Hezekiah receives word from the king of Assyria about what's going to happen to them via the Sennacherib. I hate that word. But anyway, that is the context of the story that we're talking about today. This is just a repeat of that same story, however, written in Kings instead of Isaiah.
If you're excited to do a deep dive into that specific story, you can go back and check out our episode on Isaiah 36 and 37. We talked about how Hezekiah basically falls down in the temple with the letter from Sennacherib and tells God, hey, you need to do something about this. And we also talked about Sennacherib's prism that supports the details from Isaiah 36 and 37 and is like an actual archaeological artifact that has been found that collaborates the story that's told in Isaiah and also 2 Kings. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. To some degree, we have already talked about that quite a bit. So I don't know that we're going to rehash that.
Yeah. But these Psalms are what I think we'll probably focus more on today because they, like we were saying earlier, they kind of support the narrative of that story from Isaiah. So Psalm 45, it's kind of like a progression. So Psalm 45.
It's Psalm 46.
Oh, excuse me, Psalm 46. I apologize. So I was looking at 45, but 46 is right on the other side. Anyway, Psalm 46, Psalm 80, and Psalm 135, in my opinion, as I was thinking of them in context of the story, is like this progression of understanding who God is, understanding our position in light of who he is, and then just praising the Lord for who he is. So that's kind of like how I saw it. I know there were certain things within that, in light of who God is in chapter 135, that you really resonated with as far as idols mean nothing.
Yeah,
God is all powerful.
There's actually some stuff I want to point out in Psalm 46 as well.
Okay.
Psalm 46, if you're into old hymns, A Mighty Fortress is Our God is a hymn that was written by Martin Luther that is based on Psalm 46. So if you like that song, this is where it comes from. If you have no idea what that song is, that's fine. But the idea is that God is where we find our strength. God is who protects us. God is who sustains us. And the most interesting line, I think, and it's a really popular one, verse 10, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted on the earth. Most likely this is pulled from Exodus 14:13, where the Israelites are afraid of the Egyptians because they're basically pinned between the Egyptian army and the Red Sea. And the Israelites are fearing for their lives, and Moses steps out in front of them and says, have faith in the Lord. You don't need to do anything. The Lord will do your fighting for you. You need only be still. And so this idea, be still and know that I am God, is found here in Psalm 46:10, but it's also found all the way back in Exodus 14. And the good news is it remains true for us today. So we can go to God with the things that we're, fearing, struggling with, dealing with, and we can trust that God will care for us and help us because he is working sovereignly to bring about the things that he wants. And when we trust him, we are in the best place. So that's kind of the main thing I take from Psalm 46. It's a powerful psalm. It's been around, obviously it's been around for a long time, but it's one that people like to make little coffee cups and posters and all that kind of stuff. There's another interesting thing that stuck out to me in Psalm 135. It's starting in verse 15. The idols of the nations are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths but do not speak. They have eyes but do not see. They have ears but do not hear. Nor is there any breath in their mouths. Those who make them become like them. So do all who trust in them. I think there's a lot there in that Psalm 135 is saying that you become like the things you worship. You become like the idols that you fall down before. You become like the idols that you trust in. And it even goes so far as to basically say, if you trust in stupid things, you become more and more stupid yourself. So I think that it's very interesting. I think it correlates to a lot of the things we've been reading in Isaiah about how foolish idols are and how foolish men become as they worship idols. And I think you can see that in our world today. People who trust in false gods, whether that be actual carved images and little idolatrous statues, or if it's things like money and power and possessions and status, you can see that people become like the things they worship. And sometimes they become totally unaware of the fact that their idols, the things that they worship, will ultimately be so disappointing to them.
So I guess overall, 135 kind of stuck out to me too. In our study Bibles, it does mention that this psalm was meant more to be like a praise for who God is and how he is basically using the things that he does, not only for his own will, but also for the behalf or on the behalf of the Israelites who are experiencing, in light of this story, this kind of crazy time where they're really uncertain of what's going to happen. But I think it's cool, this like little bit of a tie-in of how it's just like a comfort to them knowing that the Lord's going to have them. He does all things for his own good, his own glory. I think that can also be a reminder to us too, like no matter what we're going through, the Lord uses any and every situation for his glory and also on our behalf to glorify himself through us. So just think about that today. Think about how the Lord is using situations in your own life to bring glory to himself, and know that he is sovereign and will see you through any and all situations, similarly to how he did in this story that we talked about today. So thanks for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.